Lesson 5. To begin Lesson 5, let's go to your assignment that reviewed adverbs, prepositional phrases, and conjunctions. And let's just take up your assignment. Hopefully you didn't have too much trouble finding the adverbs. You kept in mind adverbs modify. They answer the question how, when, where, to what extent as well. So let's take a look at your section A of your handout, and let's go over the words. You were asked to find the adverbs. In sentence number 1, you should work diligently. Work how? Diligently is your adverb. Did you listen attentively? Attentively is an adverb. It also answers the question how. Sentence number 3. The Apostle Paul preached fervently. Preached how? Fervently. Number 4, you'll notice that should be familiar. That was one of the sentences we used in our review. Daniel courageously served God. Courageously is your adverb. Number 5, always do your homework carefully. Always is an adverb. Carefully is an adverb. Number 6, the Good Shepherd searched everywhere for his sheep. Searched where? Everywhere. Everywhere is the adverb. Number 7, Zacchaeus joyfully received Jesus. Joyfully is an adverb modifying received. Number 8, God will abundantly supply our needs. Abundantly is an adverb describing the verb phrase will supply. Notice how abundantly is right in the middle of the verb phrase. And that's one way to add variety to your writing. You can put adverbs where they interrupt a verb phrase. Number 9, they immediately followed the master. Immediately is an adverb, modifying the verb followed. Number 10, sentence 10. He once raised a poor seamstress from the dead. Once is an adverb, modifying the verb raised. And in those examples, you'll notice the location of the adverb. If you remember when we studied the adverb, an adverb really can be anywhere in the sentence, especially when it's modifying the verb. Notice in verse 1, it's following the action, should work. And again, following in verse 2. But notice in verse 4, courageously precedes, comes before the action verb served. And notice in verse 5, there's one adverb at the beginning and there's one adverb at the end. But they're both modifying do. And everywhere is following joyfully. In sentence 7 is coming before. Sentence 8 is coming in the middle of the verb phrase. And then in sentence 9, coming before. And sentence 10, coming before. Now, in section B, you were asked to find the prepositional phrases. So let me read the prepositional phrases, and then I'll just reiterate by saying what the preposition is. In number 1, of Pilgrim's Progress. And that should also sound familiar. We did that one on the board. Of is the preposition. Sentence 2, in prison. In is the preposition. Number 3, into prison. Into is the preposition. Without the authority. Without is the preposition. Of the state church. Of is the preposition. Sentence 4, in prison. In is the preposition. For 12 years. For is the preposition. Remember, a preposition is followed by a noun or a pronoun, and together it works and forms the prepositional phrase. In sentence 5, of modern missions, you'll notice that the father of modern missions is a name, therefore it's in quotation marks. There is a prepositional phrase, of modern missions, and of is the preposition. In sentence 6, on the theme, on is the preposition. Of foreign missions, of is the preposition. Number 7 is a verse from Philippians, the first or the only phrase, through Christ. Through is a preposition. Sometimes we think of preposition as a word that's just 2 or 3 letters, but in this verse, through is used as a preposition, through Christ. Number 8, at all times. At is the preposition. That was taken from Psalms. Number 9, under the sun. Under is the preposition. Number 10 is also taken from Psalms. Of men, of is a preposition. Under the shadow, under is the preposition. Of thy wings, of is a preposition. And in the last section of the assignment, you had to find the conjunctions. And you have to keep in mind the 3 different types of conjunctions. You've got the coordinating conjunctions, and, but, or, for, nor, yet. You've got your list of subordinating conjunctions, and then you have your correlative pairs, the ones that work together, not only but also, both and. All right, let's take a look at the first one. It's from Hebrews. I'm just going to read the conjunctions that are found. In the first line, and, when, and that's a subordinating conjunction. As, that's also a subordinating conjunction. And then in the last line, then is a conjunction. So we have and, when, as, then. Number 2, both and. There we have a correlative pair. Number 3, there's only one, and that is until, and that's a subordinating conjunction beginning a clause. And number 4, the verse from Matthew, and, but, and those are coordinating conjunctions. So that's the conjunction part. And hopefully you didn't have too much trouble identifying and finding those. Now, remember, it's quiz time where you're going to identify the parts of speech. Make sure that you have your paragraph on when you got saved and describing that from 150 to 200 words. That's also due. So please submit that. Continuing on, in Lesson 5, we are going to start taking a look at sentence parts. We have our parts of speech. We built on that. We broke up the words in a sentence. Now we're going to take a look and see how parts of speech work together to form sentence parts. The words in a sentence can be classified by their parts of speech, but also as we look at the groups of words, we can identify them by sentence parts, such as subjects, predicates, objects, clauses, prepositional phrases. Those are sentence parts based on parts of speech. Remember, it's a step-by-step process. That's why we started with the parts of speech. So we're just going to build on that, as we had looked at in Isaiah 28 and verse 10. Now, before we get into that, I want to take a look at another aspect, keeping in mind the sentence parts, but also I want to take a look at the kinds of sentences. We know that the parts of speech work together to form a sentence. And the definition of a sentence is this. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. So, keeping that in mind, there are different kinds of sentences, and there are 4 basic sentence kinds that we can classify according to their purpose. Now, these names will probably sound familiar. You will be familiar with them. And the names of the sentences classified by purpose, in other words, the purpose of the sentence, are declarative, interrogative, imperative, and you remember I had talked about imperative before when the subject you is understood. And then the last one is exclamatory. We use these sentences when we talk, we use these sentences when we write, but it's good to take a look at what their names are and what their purpose is. All right? So if you follow along in your notes, it says, a declarative sentence makes a statement and it ends with a period. So that's the basic meaning of a declarative sentence. It's a sentence that makes a statement and ends with a period. And I chose as our example Genesis 1:1. So if you want to turn to that, or if you know it by memory, Genesis 1:1 is an example of a declarative sentence. It makes a statement and it ends in a period. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's a profound statement. That's a declarative sentence. Begins with a capital and ends with a period. Another example of a declarative sentence. Father painted the house this summer. A statement begins with a capital, ends with a period. All right, let's go on to the second sentence type classed by its purpose. Interrogative. Do you know what an interrogative sentence is? An interrogative sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought, but it asks a question, and that's its definition. An interrogative sentence asks a question, and it ends with a question mark. For example, where are my keys? That's an interrogative sentence. Classified by its purpose, it's asking a question. Begins with a capital, but it ends with a question mark. Now, for declarative, let me just write in the verse reference that we use, Genesis 1:1. All right, so those are the first two types of sentences classed by their purpose. All right, the third one, imperative, and that is an E. An imperative sentence is a sentence that gives a command or makes a request, and it ends with a period. Now, it could end with an exclamation mark. It depends on how strong that command is. So an imperative sentence gives a command or makes a request and usually ends with a period, but it could end with an exclamation mark. Let's take a look at an example. Let's see. Never make the same mistake twice. Never make the same mistake twice. Period. It's an imperative sentence. It's making a request. Now, what's the verb in that sentence? The verb is make. Do you know what the subject is? The subject is you understood. And we will put you here. You is understood. In an imperative sentence, the subject you is understood. You never make the same mistake twice. You might wonder what never is. Never is an adverb. Make is the verb. And the subject you is understood in an imperative sentence. Another example, maybe something strong. Pay the price. Sometimes if we do make the same mistake twice, we do pay the price. Again, the subject you is understood in an imperative sentence. Pay the price. Showing strong emotion. It's an imperative, it's a command, it's a strong command, but it ends in an exclamation mark. So imperative sentences make some command, makes a request. If it's strong emotion, follow it by an exclamation mark. If it's just mild emotion, then they will be followed by a period. And the subject you is understood. Now, excuse me, the last type of sentence is an exclamatory. An exclamatory sentence is a sentence that shows a strong feeling. And it can be a sudden feeling or a strong feeling. And it ends with an exclamation mark. And we can use a Bible example. How excellent is how excellent is thy, referring to the Lord, loving kindness. Oh God. That's an exclamatory sentence. That's showing strong emotion. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God, followed by an exclamation mark. So those are the 4 kinds of sentences that we can write in our writing, and you can use them to show variety in your writing. And they are the declarative sentence, which makes a statement, begins with a capital, ends with a period. And we looked at Genesis 1:1 in the beginning. An interrogative sentence is a sentence that asks a question, begins with a capital, and ends with a question mark. So watch your sentences. Make sure that you use proper punctuation at the end. Imperative. An imperative sentence is one that makes a request or gives a command. Usually they end in a period, but if you're showing a strong command or a strong request, you can use the exclamation mark. In an imperative sentence, the subject of the sentence, or the subject of the verb, is always you, understood. And then lastly, your exclamatory sentence. Your exclamatory sentence shows strong emotion. And it's used with an exclamation mark. So those are the types of sentences. And we'll be looking at those again when we get into sentence parts and taking a look at clauses as well. But those are just the 4 basic parts. And I wanted to go over those with you before we get into continuing on with subjects and predicates. Because when we look at these different ones, especially this, and a question where the sentence is turned around, then finding subjects and verbs, we need to pay attention to what kind of sentence it is. An interrogative sentence, the subject and verb are out of order. In an imperative sentence, the subject you is understood. And an exclamatory sentence, again, it can be out of order as well. All right? So those are the 4: declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. Now, let's continue on with lesson 5. As I said before, we're going to be taking a look at sentence parts. And every sentence has 2 main parts. The 2 main parts of every sentence is known as the subject and the predicate. All right, every sentence has a subject, every sentence has a predicate. And we could take it and divide it right down the middle. The sentence has a subject, and the subject will have its parts. And then we have the predicate, and the predicate has all of its part. The predicate is the important part because without it, you really don't have a complete thought, regardless of what kind of sentence that it is. So, subject and predicate. We're going to take a look at each one, and we're going to take a look at what part of speech is found in each one. So let's start with the subject. Now, the definition for a subject, and if you follow along in your note, the subject is that part about which something is being said. Let me say that again. The subject is that part about which something is being said. Now, within this subject, there are other parts of speech, but within this subject, there's what we call a key word. And the key word is called the simple subject. Now, your simple subject is that noun or the pronoun that the sentence is about. The complete subject, that noun or pronoun, can have modifiers. It can have adjectives, and it can even have prepositional phrases that's acting as a modifier. So the simple subject is just that noun or pronoun that the sentence is about. The complete subject, and we can call this one up here complete. This is a noun or pronoun, and it's the key word in the complete subject. All right? So we have a complete subject, it's a whole unit, but within that complete subject, we have the key word, which is the simple subject, and it's that noun or pronoun that the sentence is about. It's the key word within the complete subject. Let's take a look at a couple of examples, such as the young soldier received some good news from home. The young soldier received some good news from home. Let's do a division. Let's find that part about which something is being said. All right? What is the who or what the sentence is about? Well, the sentence is about soldier. We can separate the subject from the predicate with a vertical line. This is our subject part of the sentence. This is our predicate part of the sentence. Notice that for the complete subject, the simple subject is soldier. That's the who or what the sentence is about. Now, soldier has modifiers. We have adjectives. And they are describing soldier. So, that's the sentence part, the subject. The simple subject, soldier. The who or what the sentence is about. Let's look at one more example. The policeman directed traffic. All right, who or what is the sentence about? Policeman. All right, policeman is the simple subject. That's the who or what the sentence is about. So let's divide it vertically. Let's separate the subject part from the predicate part of the sentence. We have separated it. This is the complete subject. Now there's only two words in it, but that's the complete subject. The is an adjective describing policeman. Policeman is a noun. Soldier is a noun as well. All right, so you can see how nouns are used as the simple subject of a sentence. So the complete subject is that part about which something is being said. Within the complete subject, we have the simple subject. That's that key word, a noun or a pronoun that the sentence is about. All right, let's take a look at predicate let's take a look at complete predicate. You'll see that we have it divided between the subject and the predicate. All right, so what is the predicate? The predicate of a sentence is that part which says something about the subject. Let me read that again. The predicate of a sentence is that part which says something about the subject. Now, within the complete predicate, you have a key word, and this key word is the heart of the sentence. Do you remember I talked about this before? What part of speech is the heart of a sentence? Do you remember? Which part of speech, if you don't have it, you don't have a complete sentence. That's the verb. Within the complete predicate, you will find the verb of the sentence, and the verb is the heart of the sentence. Without that, you do not have a sentence. So let's go back to our examples. Let's take a look at example number 1. The young soldier received some good news from home. What is the complete predicate? Well, received some good news from home. Now, within that complete predicate, what is the key word? What is the heart? What is the verb? The verb is received. We call that the simple predicate. That's the key word, the verb. It's called the simple predicate in a sentence. And then all the other words in the predicate are working together with it. Received some good news from home. So that's the simple predicate. It's the heart of the sentence. It's the verb. The predicate, the complete, are other words working with it. All right, let's take a look at number 2. It's a short sentence. What's the action? Well, we know that directed is the verb, and that's the simple predicate. We know the complete predicate is directed traffic. Often when we do sentences and we take a look at sentence parts, instead of saying, well, let's find the simple predicate, we know the simple predicate is always a verb. So when we talk about the simple predicate, we'll just automatically say, find the verb in the sentence. And then when we talk about finding the simple subject, we say, find the subject of the sentence. Who or what is the sentence about? And that's why I underlined it the way I did. Usually I'll underline the verbs twice and the subjects once. And so this is the subject and the verb of sentence number 1. This is the subject and the verb of sentence number 2. So those are our first 2 sentence parts. The simple subject and the simple predicate. Now, when we think of subjects and predicates, we also know, and we've looked at this before, even with our other examples, in a sentence there can be more than one verb. And in a sentence there can be more than one subject. When we have 2 subjects that share the same verb, we can have compound subjects. We can also have compound verbs where they share the same subjects as well. So we're going to take a look at a couple of sentences that show compound predicates and compound subjects, more than one working together. We're going to take a look, as I said before, about compound subjects and compound verbs. Now, a compound subject consists of 2 or more subjects. They are connected by the coordinating conjunctions, usually and, or nor. And compound subjects share the same verb. Now, let's take a look at compound subjects first. Remember, they're joined by and, or nor. Remember, a subject is that part about which something is being said. So let's take a look at number 1, and let's do the division. Let's separate the subject from the predicate. Paul and Silas sang praises at midnight. All right? The subject, that part about which something is being said. Here we have a division between the subject and the predicate. All right, compound subject. Who or what is the sentence about? The sentence is about Paul, Silas. What's the conjunction joining them? And. We have a compound subject, Paul and Silas. Let's go on to number 2. Both rich and poor should learn contentment. Let's separate the subject from the predicate. Who or what is the sentence about? Rich, poor. What are the conjunctions? And, both. That's what we call the correlative pair, both and, working together. So here we have a compound subject, rich, poor, and they share the same verb. Now, let's go back to Numbers 1 and let's find the verb. What verb is Paul and Silas sharing? What is the action in the predicate? What is that simple predicate? Sang. Paul and Silas sang. Number 2, what is the action? What is the verb? What is that simple predicate within the complete predicate? Should learn. Here we have a verb phrase working together as one. Learn is the key, the main verb. Should is helping it. Should learn, verb phrase. Rich, poor, should learn. All right, so compound subjects. 2 or more subjects joined by the conjunctions and, or, nor, even, correlative pair, both and. They share the same verb. All right, let's go on. Let's take a look at compound verbs. Compound predicates. A compound verb consists of 2 or more verbs. And again, they're connected by or, and, nor, even but can be used in the coordinating conjunctions. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Mr. Miller witnessed faithfully to his neighbor and won him to the Lord. Let's divide the subject from the predicate to start with. Who or what is the sentence about? Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller is our subject. Now, let's find the compound verb. What actions is Mr. Miller performing? Well, he witnessed. What else did he do? Won. So here we have a compound verb, 2 verbs joined by the conjunction and, witnessed, and won. And these verbs share the same subject, Mr. Miller. Now, notice there's other parts to the predicate that work with the verb, but we'll come back to those when we take a look at other sentence parts. We want to just concentrate on subjects and predicates, the verbs. All right, number 3, Jacques Cartier discovered and explored the St. Lawrence River. All right, let's divide the subject and the predicate. Who or what is the sentence about? What is the simple subject? The simple subject is the compound noun, Jacques Cartier. All right, now, what actions did he perform? Discovered. There's a conjunction and. Explored. So those are the verbs. And let's go back and label this one and that one. All right, compound verbs. 2 or more verbs joined by coordinating conjunctions. They share the same subject. Compound parts. Now, number 4 is going to show compound subjects and compound verbs, where you have subjects, 2 or more, performing 2 or more actions. All right, so you can have compound subjects and compound verbs within the same sentence. So let's take a look at an example. Paul and Barnabas went to the people and preached. All right, let's divide. Let's separate first the subject from the verb or the predicate. Who or what is the sentence about? Well, it's about Barnabas, Paul, compound subject, joined by and. Went to the people and preached. All right, what are the actions that Paul and Barnabas are doing? Went, preached. And what's the conjunction? And. You'll find and is the most commonly used of the coordinating conjunctions. So, compound subject, doing compound actions. All right, so our subjects and predicates can be compound. Just have to be conscious of the conjunctions that join them and spotting them and being able to find them. So we can have compound parts within our subjects and within our verbs. When you come to do the assignment, let's take a look at something that you can do to help you find the verb and its subject. There's two things that you can do to help you find those key parts of the sentence, and the subject and the verb. So we're going to take a look at some more examples, and we're going to just follow a couple of steps to help you locate the subject and its verb. What I had done here was basically what we do. But if you remember when we were doing the parts of speech, if you find the verb first and then go from there, that will help you locate the subject. Because if you remember when I mentioned about the classification of sentences, how they can be out of order, interrogative sentences, the subject used, understood, sometimes you really have to look to find the subject of the sentence. So if you start with the verb, then that will help you. So we'll take a look at some sentences that put that into practice. Let's look at some sentences. Let's find subjects and verbs. And as I said before, to help you find the subjects and the verbs of the sentence, always start with the verb. Ask yourself, what is the action? What is the linking verb? Is there a verb phrase? Always locate the verb. The verb is the heart. If you take it out, you don't have a complete thought. A man of knowledge increaseth strength. What is the action? What is the verb of the sentence? The action, increaseth. That's the heart. If you take that out, you don't have a sentence. A man of knowledge, strength. Doesn't make any sense. So increaseth is the verb of the sentence. Now, to help you locate the subject, ask yourself, who or what increaseth? Who or what increaseth? Man increaseth. Man is the subject. Man increaseth. Be careful of prepositional phrases. Remember we talked about a complete subject can have the simple subject plus other parts? This one does. If we separate it there, we'll see that the complete predicate has other parts to it. Watch out for prepositional phrases. Your subject is never found in a prepositional phrase. Knowledge increaseth? No. Man increaseth strength. So be careful of prepositional phrases. Just watch out for those. Find the verb, increaseth. Who or what increaseth? Man. Number 2, my spirit shall not always strive with man. What is the verb of the sentence? Now, be careful. Strive is the action verb. There's also a helping verb working with it. Can you spot the helping verb? Shall. We can separate the complete subject from the complete predicate. Shall strive. Notice we have 2 adverbs. Not is always an adverb, and then always. And always is also being used as an adverb. All right? Who or what shall strive? Spirit is the subject of the sentence. It's the noun. Number 3, the young ruler had great riches. What is the verb? What is the action? What is the state of being? Had, showing possession. We can divide it. Who or what had great riches? Ruler. Remember, for the simple subject, it's only a noun or a pronoun. Don't include its modifiers. This makes up the complete subject, but the simple subject is ruler. That's the who or what the sentence is about. Who or what had? Ruler had. Number 4, notice, what must I do to be saved? This is a question mark. This is an interrogative sentence. When you have an interrogative sentence, your subjects and verbs are out of order. So you really have to find the verb first, then ask yourself, who or what? So the verb, what must I do to be saved? Now, be careful. The verb in this one is do. It has a helping verb, must. This one, when it's an interrogative, we cannot divide it because the sentence is out of order. We can't easily separate the subject and the predicate with the vertical line. But we do need to find the subject. Who or what must do? I. I must do what to be saved? We can make it into a statement. Now, you might say, well, be is a verb, saved is a verb. That's true. But they are being used as a different sentence part. This here is not the main verb of the sentence. It's being used as something else. Must do is the main verb. We'll be getting into that kind of thing later on. It's called an infinitive, the to be saved, working together as a sentence part, and we're going to look at those later on as well. That's just another type of sentence part. But for this sentence, it's just must do, I must do. So be careful with questions, find the verb, and then ask yourself who or what about the verb. Now, number 5. Quoting from Proverbs 22 and 24, the first section. Make no friendship with an angry man. This is an imperative sentence. This is making a command or a request. And the verb is make. All right? Who or what make? Do you remember what the subject is of an imperative sentence that makes a request or a command? It's you. The subject you is understood. You make no friendship with an angry man. This here is the complete predicate. It has the verb and other parts working with the verb. And we'll look at what those other parts are in our next lessons coming up. Now, number 6, only during the winter months does the ermine have a white coat. All right, let's find the verb. Find the verb, find the action. Keep in mind what verbs are. Showing action, keep in mind helping verbs, the linking verbs. Does is the verb. It also is working with have. We have a verb phrase, does have. And it's separated. The verb phrase is not together. Just like in this one, the verb phrase wasn't together. Sometimes that happens. Number 6, this sentence is totally out of order. All right, only during the winter months does the ermine have a white coat. Does have is the verb. Who or what does have? What is the subject of the sentence? Who or what does have? What is the sentence about? Ermine, the noun ermine. That is what the sentence is about. Ermine does have. All right, so notice that is really out of order. The subject here is also in the middle of a verb phrase. So sentence orders in finding the subject and the verb first, and ask yourself who or what. Be careful of prepositional phrases separating subjects and verbs. Be careful of verb phrases separating subjects and verbs. Be careful of your imperative sentence where the subject you is understood. And again, in a sentence where everything is turned around. It's beginning with an adverb. It's followed by a prepositional phrase during the winter months. And here we have the subject kind of at the end or almost in the middle. And again, it's being separated by a verb phrase. So in finding the subject of a verb, or subject of a sentence, first find the verb, and then find the subject by asking who or what. Let's take a look at a Bible verse in our Bible. Let's turn to Psalm chapter 40. Psalm chapter 40. And in Psalm chapter 40, I want to take a look at verse 2. Psalm chapter 40 and verse 2. And it says, He brought me up also out of an horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. Let's find the verbs. And I will say verbs plural. I'm sure you heard them as I read them. All right, verbs. In this verse, we have compound verbs. First verb, who or what? All right, so the verb is brought. That's an action. Notice there's the conjunction and set. Set is the second verb. Notice there's another and established. Established is the third verb. So we have three verbs: brought, set, established. All right, finding the subject. Who or what brought, set, established? The subject is he. He has a compound verb. If we were to separate this verse using our vertical line, separating the subject and the predicate, then our vertical line would be between he and brought. He brought, he set, he established. So compound parts can also be in our sentences. And when you're finding the verb of a sentence first, be careful, make sure you find all the verbs, watch your conjunctions, especially and. It's used most often. To find the subject, ask yourself who or what before that verb, and the subject should fill it in. Those words will make sense together. All right? They'll make sense. Man increaseth, spirit shall strive, ruler had, I must do, you make, Ermine does have. Those two words will make sense together when you put them together after you found them. So our first group of sentence parts is the subject, that part about which something is being said, and the predicate. And it's that part that tells what the subject is doing or is happening with the subject. Within the subject, you have the simple subject, which is only the noun or the pronoun, who or what the sentence is about. And you have the simple predicate or the verb, which is the heart of the predicate. When you're finding subjects and verbs in a sentence, find the verb first, then ask yourself who or what about the verb. Your assignment will be in finding subjects and verbs, just like we did. Follow the step-by-step process, find the verb, ask yourself who or what. Remember, those two words will make sense together. And we'll take up that assignment in our next lesson.